The Fox City SCORE chapter and WHBY are pleased to bring you Biz Talk, a chance for you to hear from entrepreneurs and professionals as they share their experiences from starting to sustaining growth. Learn the skills needed for your business to be successful. If you missed anything, you can catch the Biz Talk podcast at biztalkwithscore.com. And now from the Myron Construction Studio, it's Biz Talk on WHBY.
Good morning and happy Saturday, everyone. I'm Rick Sentz along with Terry Pinch today, and you're listening to Biz Talk with SCORE on WHBY. So, Terry, how was your week?
It's been very, very, very busy. I'm supposed to be retired, but it's been meetings from about 8 hours a day, which is much less than my working career, but is much more than my retirement career. So I got to work on it.
Sounds like you need to retire from your retirement. So
I think so.
Yeah. Our guest this morning, folks, is a gentleman by the name of Brad Grant. Brad is the president and CEO of Premier Financial Credit Union, headquartered in New Holstein, Wisconsin. Brad, welcome to the program.
Hey, thank you for having me.
So I always like to just kind of throw the old question out there to everyone that when we start is, can you just give us a little bit about your background for listeners, please?
Okay. I started off actually working for a finance company when they were still fairly prevalent in Wisconsin, and learned a lot about lending to small businesses back then. We did a lot of small business lending, and we were very quick at turnaround and getting people back on the street with their money. Went from there, went into the banking world, worked for community banks my entire career. And I think most of them have either been sold or merged out since then. But 7 years ago, I came to Premier Financial Credit Union. I heard that the CEO was retiring, Steve Notham, and I knew Steve, so I called him up and said, "Steve, let's talk." And he said, "Brad, I think you would make a good fit." He goes, "You're very similar background to what he had, commercial lending and working in small community banks and helping businesses along the way and communities." So that's how I ended up here at Premier Financial Credit Union, and I love it. You know, it's been a really good adventure.
And what's the mission of Premier Financial Credit Union, Brad?
Our mission originally, we were formed to serve members of or people that worked at Tecumseh and Lawson Motors. So we were a captive credit union. Since then, those two organizations have closed up, and now we serve members in our local community and in the counties surrounding Calumet County. So our mission is to really serve those members and the businesses and the communities to make them a better place financially.
Okay, so you're an open charter now then, correct?
Yes, we are. Yes.
Do you have any plans for future expansion?
You know, there's nothing right now on the horizon that we're going to pull the trigger on or anything. But we're always looking for better ways to serve our members. If it means expanding and opening up another branch, yes. Or if it means just maybe digitally expanding our market that way, we can do that as well. Or maybe an ATM or an ITM in a community that's underserved. That's what we look at, some community that doesn't quite have the services that we offer or doesn't deal with the small member that we do. Our average business loan is $60,000, and our average member is blue collar. So we look for those markets because that's what we specialize in.
Okay, and now you obviously have online banking, so you can serve anybody that has access to the internet. But in addition to that, and the New Holstein office, what other locations do you have then?
We have an office in Kiel and an office in Chilton. Chilton, of course, is the county seat for Calumet, so that's a very busy office for us. We are the only credit union in all three communities that we actually work with. We also have a high school branch, so we're there one day a week just to have a presence there and let people know that we're in the community, and hopefully give some financial awareness to the students there as well.
Which high school are you in?
New Holstein.
New Holstein. Okay, great. Okay.
Yes.
And then, so could you maybe walk through with listeners the difference between, you mentioned your community bank background, but credit unions are a little different. Can you maybe talk through the structure of a credit union for our listeners?
Okay. We are a member-owned organization. In ours particular, we were formed by the employees at Tecumseh because they wanted to help their people that work there financially. So they actually started off in the first first savings account or bank account they had was actually in the toolbox for somebody that worked there, until they got big enough to actually get an office. So yeah, we started off doing that. Then Tecumseh changed. They actually closed up. So then we opened up that charter to a bigger market. So right now we do serve Manitowoc County. We also serve Fond du Lac, Outagamie, and Sheboygan. So we've opened it up there, and mostly we picked those counties because the people that worked at Tecumseh a lot of times lived in those counties. So that's how we ended up there. So we are member owned. We're here to serve the members. We really return to them products and services that are cheaper than what our competitors can get. So our interest rates might be lower on the loan side, or our fees might be less or non-existent on the fee side. And we return a lot of value to our members through that.
Okay, so that's when I hear the phrase the credit union difference, that's really what you guys are talking about then.
That's exactly what it is. And I love the banking world when I worked there, but they did have a different mission. They were there, they worked in their communities. We did a lot of good stuff in the communities, but they're virtually there to serve the stockholders and, to make sure that they make a profit to pay them a dividend.
Okay. All right. And then, what products and services do you offer? I mean, are you pretty much boilerplate, or are there some things that you do that are a little different than a bank would do?
No, I wouldn't say boilerplate, because we are, very similar to a bank in that way. Just that we might approach things differently. We do make loans, $500 loans to people. In the banking world, we didn't want to touch small loans like that because they're unprofitable. But if a member walks through the door and says, hey, I'm in a tight spot. I need to get my car repaired and I need $500 so I can get it back so I can get to work. We'll make that person a $500 loan if they qualify to get them back on the road. We also, that $60,000 average balance on our business loans. A lot of financials will not do loans that small. And a lot of those people are, not even LLCs. They're just doing business as. So they come in and open up a checking account and put a DBA, doing business as, behind their name and whatever their Paul's Plumbing or something like that. And we'll give them a loan to get up and started. And sometimes we use collateral that they own personally if we have to collateralize it because they don't have business assets at that point. So we do things a little different, in that respect, but otherwise we're very similar to a bank. Yeah.
Okay.
When I lived here in the early 90s for a couple of years, there was a lot of credit unions around, but nobody ever talked about getting a business loan from a credit union. So when I did come back around 2003, that was a huge change. There was even more credit union offices, and I was talking to neighbors and people who were getting business loans from credit unions. What led to that transition, and how has it impacted your business?
I have to agree with you, Terry. Credit unions were not seen as business lenders. What's happened over the years is, as I mentioned, I work for a number of banks, and all but one of those banks has either been sold or merged out to a bigger organization. And what's happened is that those bigger organizations really want to deal with bigger loans. So they don't want to do those loans at $100,000 or $250,000 in some cases because they want the bigger clips. The bigger the bank, the bigger the limit that they have on the loan they're going to get. Credit unions also do have some restrictions on the number of business loans they can make in most cases. I don't think any of them really bump up against those restrictions, but they are out there. So they probably never saw them as a viable business lane before, but now they are because the need is there for small business lending, and we're kind of filling that niche.
Go ahead, Rick.
No, go ahead, Terry.
Okay. So as you find and fill that niche, are you finding that it's slowly growing too because the banks are still moving further up the size scale?
You mean that our business is growing, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, credit unions are growing, but really they're kind of staying very parallel with where they are nationwide. The credit unions only have 14% of the banking business across the entire nation. So that's pretty similar to what we probably have here in Wisconsin, maybe a little higher than that, just because Wisconsin, for lack of a better description, is a mecca for credit unions. There's very strong presence here in Wisconsin for credit unions. So we probably have maybe 20% of the assets in Wisconsin are credit union assets. So yeah, we're growing along with it. The business lending is growing, but we're also growing on that consumer side as well.
So do you do any SBA lending at all, Brad?
We have. When the PPP programs came out for the COVID, we had a pretty strong demand on that area, and we did a lot of them at that time. The SBA since then has changed how they do things, and they really are trying to make things more streamlined, for small organizations like us to lend, and also smaller businesses to borrow from them. So we're looking at that again and getting back into it, because it has become more favorable for small organizations and small borrowers to utilize the SBA.
And being located in Calumet County, do you do a lot of agricultural lending?
We don't. We do have a couple farmers out there, and mostly it's people that are very well heeled. They're very strong, and they might call us up and they're a member of the credit union and say, "Hey, I need to get a new tractor, and I'm paying half down, and I need half of it to finance." So we do some of that, but the big farmers, there's been so many of them that have consolidated. When they're milking 7,000 cows, Rick, they're kind of out of our league because they're borrowing a lot of big money at that point. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. All right. What's been the most rewarding aspect of your role since you came on board? You mentioned that you've been there about 7 years, and what do you really just enjoy doing in your day-to-day work?
Day to day, I love working with our members. When I got an office that looks right out into the lobby and onto the teller line, and I kind of keep track of what's going on out there. And when I see a member out there that I know or somebody I haven't talked to for a while, I'll go out there and say hi. And I got several of them that just I got my door is just a big piece of glass is really all it is. And those members will come up and they'll give me a high sign, give me a wave. And then sometimes I can go out there and talk to them, or they see them on the phone. They just want to say, "Hey, Brad, I'm here. Take care, and we'll see you next time." I love interacting with the members, whether it's here or out and about. We do a lot of things. We're involved with 3 different chambers because we're in 3 different communities, and I try to go to all their annual meetings to interact with our members. So I would say on my most rewarding part is dealing with the members. Secondary, I have a lot of good people that work for me, and I love to help them do their job and be there for them when they need somebody. So that's really a big part of it. Yeah.
All right.
A question I'd have for you is, with all the changes that have happened in technology, how has your credit union been able to adapt and adjust? What's helped you do that?
I would say the best thing about that, Terry, is that scale. As things get bigger, the technology, I shouldn't say gets cheaper, but it gets more affordable, because everybody has to have it. A lot of times we do not adapt things the day they come out. Online banking is probably a good example. We've had online banking for a long time, but when it first came out, we were not an early adapter of those type of programs because they were very expensive. But as time goes on, those prices come down, and then we can throw them in there. But now, we see that we're able to pick up things a little quicker because of the size of things. Things are just cheaper going in.
Okay, that's great. We're at the place where we're going to take our first break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Welcome back to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY. I'm Rick Sense, along with Terry Pinch this morning, and our guest is Brad Grant, President and CEO of Premier Financial Credit Union. But before we get back to the program, I want to spend a moment talking about Score. Score Northeast Wisconsin serves an 18-county area in northeast Wisconsin, plus the county of Menominee in Michigan. We have over 50 volunteers, each an expert in their field, offering entrepreneurs no-cost and confidential mentoring. Those areas of expertise include IT, social media, marketing, cash flow, accounting, strategic planning, workflow, HR, retail, best practices, and many, many others. In order to register for a no-cost confidential mentoring session and or to learn more about Score Northeast Wisconsin, please visit our website at score.org/Northeast Wisconsin. You can learn more about how the SCORE chapter can assist you with starting and or growing your business, and you can complete an application for a mentoring session. Simply complete the online form and submit it to SCORE. Within a few days, a SCORE mentor will be contacting you to set up a meeting. Remember, SCORE is no cost and offers experts who can offer you assistance in many different areas. To get started, visit our website at score.org/Northeast Wisconsin. And to support small business people, SCORE Northeast Wisconsin is always looking for new mentors. If you have experience that you would like to share with others, we'd love to talk to you. We welcome volunteers with experience in all aspects of business. Small business owners need your help, and your experience can make a real difference to their success. Go to score.org/Northeast Wisconsin, click on the volunteer button, and fill out the short application, and we'll get back to you to explain more. So thanks again for listening to Biz Talk this morning. Now back to the show. Brad, one of the things I've noticed in your background is you worked for a community bank and you work for a credit union now, and there seems to be this kind of thread through your resume of working in a small community or working for a community in a small town. Can you maybe talk about why that's important to you?
Yeah, Rick, and growing up, I grew up in a small town and realized the value of living in one. Most of the banks I worked for they were all community banks. They had branches similar to what our credit union does, maybe 2 or 3 branches. Later in my career, I worked for some bigger organizations, but most of the banks I worked for sold out. When I was with the credit or the banking world, I had friends of mine that would come up to me and say, "Geez, Brad, you would make a good credit union person." And I never knew what that meant. And then when I had the opportunity to get into the credit union world, I found out what it meant. It meant that we were here to really get down on the ground floor and help our members, to achieve their successes, financially. I very quickly got involved in the credit union world. I became involved in the state Wisconsin Credit Union League. We also have a local chapter that we're involved in that I go to. And we also have organizations such as CUNA, Credit Union National Association, National Association of Federal Credit Unions, and Corporate Central Credit Union, which is a credit union, large credit unions for credit unions. So we have some place to do our banking. So I'm involved in all those organizations, and they all have their members in the forefront of every decision they make, which is great. And that's why I enjoy working for a credit union. And that's why I enjoy communities, of our size that we work in, because whether you work with the chamber or with the local economic development, they're always looking out for what's going on in their community.
You mentioned earlier, too, that Wisconsin was kind of the hotbed of credit unions nationwide and actually internationally. Can you maybe just give listeners a reason why Wisconsin's known for that?
Yeah, it's early on in credit union's life, the CUNA, which is Credit Union National Association, was formed in Madison. And it grew substantially over the years. So that became kind of the focal point of credit unions was here in Wisconsin. The first credit union was born in New Hampshire, and out east. So that's why is some activity out there. But Wisconsin always is very strong in that respect. Plus, we're a very strong union community. Wisconsin is, and credit unions and unions kind of went hand in hand for a long time. As unions maybe left or organizations got gobbled up and unions weren't as popular, we still are here to serve every member, whether you're a union worker or not.
Is that something that has changed? I mean, is that Wisconsin focus not as important, or do you think the credit union movement has really benefited from its Wisconsin roots?
I think it benefited from the Wisconsin roots. It's grown nationwide, but it's a little bigger in Wisconsin. And Wisconsin looks for ways to do things better. And I think that's probably why the credit union world has survived and thrived in Wisconsin, because it is a competition for the community banks, and competition keeps everybody on their toes.
And with your background and your love for the small community, how does that play into the decisions that you make on the lending front? Does that impact your lending decisions at all?
Yeah, every decision we make is done right here in New Holstein. Both the branches, branch managers and the commercial lenders that we have at one of the branches outside of New Holstein, they all have lending authority and they can make decisions based upon their lending authority. If it's over their lending authority, we have weekly loan meetings right here in New Holstein where we can meet and make a decision within minutes. If someone says, "Hey, I'm going out shopping tomorrow for a new skid steer," we can make a decision in 15 minutes if we have to. So yeah, that's one thing I like about the community bank is I don't have to go up 3 levels to get an approval for $100,000 skid steer. I can do it right here and just get a couple people together, sign off on it, make the deal and go on.
Okay. So I think we're at the right place for our second break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Biz Talk. This week we're talking to Brad Grant, President and CEO of Premier Financial Credit Union. Before we get back to Brad, there are a couple education updates I want to provide. As always, if you go to our website at score.org/Northeast Wisconsin, you'll see an events and workshops tab up at the top of the page. Click on that tab and it takes you into a large library of different options, some live upcoming courses, some webinars, some standard online courses that people can take. This week, I just want to mention 2 financially related courses that are upcoming live events. And the first one is Mastering Small Business Taxes, a startup guide to taxes. That is February 25th at 12 o'clock Central Time. And if you ever come to Score for mentoring, one thing that most mentors will tell you is get an accountant. People don't want to spend the money, but the tax code is so difficult to understand that it really helps. That you will find out you'll get savings from it. And this is an opportunity to go in and learn more about the basics of taxes. It'll help you'll deal with your accountant even better. The other one is Best Practices and Legalities of Selling a Business. And you can tell that's going to be a lawyer presenting it just by the title. But there are a lot of small businesses out there starting to talk about selling. Selling is a very difficult thing. In fact, it's only about 20% of small businesses ever get sold. The rest end up closing for a variety of reasons when the owner retires. So you want to start working on it early. And this is an opportunity. Again, it's on February 25th. It's at 6:30 Central Time. And you can go and start talking more about some of the things you need to know around selling your business. Because we always recommend you need to start planning at least 3 to 5 years before you want to sell. And you're better off doing it if you start when you won't start the business. But you do need to understand that piece. So again, score.org/Northeast Wisconsin, and it's workshops and events tab. And those are 2 of the courses we were talking about that are 2 of many courses that you'll find out there. So with that, we're going to turn back to Brad. And Brad, one of the things I wanted to build on from the early conversation was how a smaller organization in the finance world is able to compete. Because for a lot of people, they might listen and hear, well, I won't get the same services at a credit union, but you can in most cases. Can you talk a little bit about what it means for a small credit union to compete and how you get the resources you may not have within your building?
Yeah, I touched on SBA lending a little earlier, and that's one of them where it's tough to have somebody on board that is a complete expert in the SBA because they have a lot of different programs, and they've got a lot of manuals to look through, so because you have hoops to jump through. So we actually employ a vendor that actually has that specialty. He's been an SBA lender himself for his entire career. He also has a portal to get into the SBA because in order to book an SBA loan, you have to have access to this portal to get approval to book it, and then to file reports as you monthly as you have these loans on your books. So we employ a lot of vendors that can help us do that. I also touched on CUNA earlier. CUNA has a lot of programs that we can use. We do a lot of training internally, but we don't have the expertise to hit the things on the head that the examiners want us to. So we use CUNA to do some of that. And one of the programs that they have. We call it CPD Online. It's the Center for Professional Development. And we have people that go through those and train whenever they have an extra 5 minutes. They can go online. If a member comes in and they have to serve them, they pause it. They pick it right back up 10 minutes later, half an hour later, or 2 days later, and finish that training. And we're finding out through this program who likes to train, who wants to move up the ladder, and who wants to learn more about their job. So it's really done a lot for us because they can go on anytime and do it. It's a really good program for us. But having those resources available from outside vendors makes us competitive in the world. Yeah.
And is that's something too that's changed a lot in the last 10 or 15 years with the consolidation of some of the bigger mid and large size banks?
I would say so, because as those banks consolidated and closed up branches, the credit unions got bigger, partially because of that. As a bank closes up a branch, a lot of those assets would go to the small community credit union. And as the credit unions grew, the regulators put more onus on us to make sure we stay up to snuff on whether it's training or whether it's, making sure we comply with all the regulations that affect our members. So yeah, so some of that has to do with that exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So looking at your credit union and where you're working and what you're doing, what do you see, taking into account all the vendors and the capability you can bring in as well as what you have internally, where do you see the credit union heading in the future?
In the future, well, we've been a growing credit union. Over the last 5 years, we've grown by 40%. Last year, our loan department grew, I think it was probably close to 15%. So we've been very fortunate in the fact that we're growing. We're also financially very sound with 12% capital ratio. So we have a lot of resources behind us. So we do not see too many challenges going forward. The biggest challenge we have is baby boomer retirements. I came here 7 years ago, and since then, over 30% of our people have retired. But we've been able to take people that were on middle management, move them up into positions, people that were frontline people, and move them into middle management positions. But that also causes that problem of making sure they're ready for the job. So we've been able to train them through some of these programs like the CPD Online that CUNA has. We've also sent them out to training that the Wisconsin Credit Union League offers and national organizations offer. So I would say the biggest challenge we've had would be that credit unions that are smaller than us, they may have challenges going forward, but as long as they continue to grow and make a profit, to be able to afford to the capital levels and to be able to forward some of those things that we talked about earlier, compliance costs and stuff like that, it'll thrive. It'll continue to grow here in Wisconsin and serve our members. I see a good place for us to be even 5 and 10 years from now.
And how difficult is it to find employees? Are you able to find them locally, or do you have to go a little broader?
We're able to find them locally. It takes a little longer than it has in the past. I would say most of the people that we hire, we do train. We don't find a real lot of people that have been in the industry for 20 years coming on board. I mean, I came here with a lot of experience, but I came on at a higher level executive position. But we hire people right off the street, and as long as they have the aptitude to learn, we can train them to do almost anything.
So, Brad, I have to ask you, since I've known you, you're a very positive, upbeat person, and you're always focused on the community. So what motivates you to be that way?
I would say I love what I do, Rick. It's fun to get up every morning and deal with the members, no matter what they are, and to deal with my employees. I love to see my employees grow and move into positions. And I feel that if I get the right person in the right position, I just let them go. I let them run a little bit to see what they can come up with. If they're growing and they're ambitious, They're going to learn from what they do, from their mistakes and from their successes, and they're going to be a good employee. I'll step in and help them once in a while if they need it, but I'm always here to answer any of the questions or help them in any guidance that I can.
And I know that your organization is really committed to creating value and building a culture with that specific focus of serving the member. So how do you instill that for somebody that you bring in, as you said, off the street? How do you bring them up to speed on your culture and get them where you need them to be for that?
We're on a big push right now on culture because we've had, as I mentioned earlier, 30% of our people have retired over the last 5 to 7 years, and we've had to move people into those positions. So we promote from within. So we have a strong base. Those people that are getting promoted understand us very well. But we've also hired an outside firm, which is Rise Leadership, which is Ben Foskey, and he's right out of the valley here, and he has done a really good job for us. Mark Derwacher works for him as well. They work together, and Mark is actually a native of Kiel, so he's actually worked one-on-one with a number of our middle managers to help get them up to where they need to be as far as being a manager. And then he also works on a whole staff basis, does staff training for us. So yeah, it's been a really good relationship. Our employees like the fact that we're sticking time and effort into making them better people. So we take 2 days a year and we take the whole staff out for a whole day and train. And we're seeing not just the fact that they're growing, but the fact that they appreciate what we're doing.
And you obviously are a mentor, and you've developed that belief in mentorship in your organization. So I have to ask you, if you're teaching others, you must have had examples in your own life that you were mentored by. Can you maybe give listeners an idea of some of those people and what they've taught you that you've carried forward to this day?
I would say one of the most strategic moments in my life was I had a very poor manager, and at that point in my career, I was deciding what I wanted to do. And I thought, well, I've got one of two paths to take. I can either be like him and be kind of rule with an iron fist and not a very caring attitude, or I can be somebody that wants to make people want to work for them. I decided to take that path, and it actually led me to servant leadership. I have my master's in servant leadership from Viterbo College, and I would say one of my best mentors there was Tom Thibodeau. He started the servant leadership program down there, and he is just spectacular. Locally, the guy I lean on, or used to lean on, was Mike Ahrens from Ahrens Corporation. When I was running the bank, he was on my board. And just listening to him and how he approached things was just phenomenal. I learned a lot from him.
And what lesson have you learned that's really impacted your life the most?
Finding the right people and getting them on the right seat on the bus. Some people are hired for one job, and you're like, boy, they just aren't flourishing in that job. But we know they're the right person for our organization. What else can we do? Sometimes we have to tweak their position, or sometimes we just have to move them to a different job. We've hired people and thought, hey, this person needs to be there. Let's promote them and move them in there. And one in particular we have on the books right now. And she says, I'm not happy where I'm at. Why not? I just don't like the face-to-face customer contact. Well, we just started a call center. She's doing not the same thing down there, but she deals with customers every day, members every day, and she loves it. But she just is in that different mode where she's not dealing face to face, but she's dealing with them over the phone. And so getting the people that work for you, finding their skills and getting them on the right seat on the bus is very important to their success and the credit unions.
Going back to the business side of the business that you've done as far as the lending and things like that, what would you advise or how would you advise people that are just starting out in their business, small business owners, how they should get ready to approach a financial institution? Oftentimes, there's a fear or trepidation on their part to wanting to come in and talk to someone. How would you allay them of that fear, and what advice would you give them to be prepared when they have that sit down with a financial advisor?
Early on, get established early on. Have good financials and have a good accountant or somebody you can lean on to get that information ready for you. When somebody comes in and they say, hey, I need a business loan, talk to your accountant before you come in. He'll tell you what you need. And we need very specific stuff. We need your tax returns or your income over the last couple of years, a business plan. And it doesn't have to be a complicated business plan, something put together as to how I'm going to run my business. What's going to happen a year from now? Where's my revenue derived from? How am I going to pay my expenses, and what are my expenses going to be? Just something brief. But don't give up on your dreams, and make sure you get in there and talk to that banker early on. Establish your checking and savings account. And when you're there, just say, hey, do you have a commercial lender on board that I could talk to? And just get to know him. That's what I like about community banking is when I go out to a chamber event and I get to know people, years later, or maybe even 6 months later, or maybe 2 days later, somebody comes in and says, we were talking about this at the chamber meeting. I just wanted to get your feel on this. This is what I was thinking about doing. And I shouldn't say we do a lot of startup businesses, but yeah, we start a lot of people in business. So whether it's a small business, we can help you get there. And some people just need, they'll take out a second mortgage on their home and keep their job and start their part-time business going. And it really works out well. But get to know your banker or your person at the credit union, wherever you're at beforehand, and get somebody an organization where they've been around a while. If there's a lot of turnover or if people are moving in and out of that place, find somebody that's going to be there for a while. That's because you need to rely on that longevity.
All right. And
building on that, when they come in, how does a credit union balance risk versus serving the community? How do you bring that into the loan committee meetings, and when you're working with customers, how do you make sure you're doing the right thing for both the credit union members and that specific member?
There's a fence there. There's a fence there, Terry, to walk. If you go over one side too far, and you're making loans that aren't good to make, not only does that person that you gave the loan get hurt, not only does a credit union get hurt, but the community as a whole gets hurt, because if the person goes under, everybody's going to feel that. But on the other side of the fence, if you're not making those deals that can be made, you're also hurting the individual, the credit union, and the community. So you have to be very, very diligent in how you make those decisions. And we try to make it fair as we can, but we also make sure we stick to the rules and regulations that we have. But we want to make as many deals as we can out there, not just to help the individual with that loan, but also to help the community. Strong community has a good lending foundation in it.
Okay.
And you give back to the community a lot at your organization, Brad. Could you maybe just share with listeners some of the things that you guys are doing in your community?
Boy, there's right now the Optimists are adding on to their park up on the hill just east of the credit union here, and they're doing quite a big operation. So we're helping out with that financially. They're on a big fundraiser. We do that. The Lions Club, they just did an addition down on their park. I'm a Lions member, so I was down there one day shoveling bark and then painting the pavilion. So yeah, there's those things are going on all the time. The chamber has a golf outing. We help with those things. There's fundraisers for people that are maybe fighting cancer or have something going on in their family that they're dealing with. Maybe it's a fire or something on that order. So yeah, we're out there a lot in that respect. But we also incentivize our employees to help with that stuff as well. So we try to be as community oriented as we can. Yeah.
And are you having fun?
Oh, without a doubt. Every day I get here, Rick, everybody said, Brad, how's it going today? I said, hey, it's going great. I can't complain. Are we ready to go? Let's get up and get at them. My wife even complains sometimes that when I get up in the morning, I'm cheerier than she wants to be. And it drives her nuts. But when I get here, I take that energy out on the crowd here at the credit union because I just love life and I love what I do.
All right.
Okay, great. We're going to come back for our last segment right after these messages. You're listening to Biz Talk with SCORE on WHBY, and we appreciate all of you listening in. Welcome back to Biz Talk. I would like to thank the sponsors and donors who bring Biz Talk with Score to you each weekend. We couldn't present the show without their generous support. Thank you to Hailing and Associates. Hailing and Associates helps small businesses and individuals not just prepare tax returns, but plan ahead, thereby helping you minimize taxes for this year and beyond. Hailing and Associates, personal connection, positive results. Thank you to Johnson Financial Group. Wherever you are in your life or the life of your business, Johnson Financial Group works with you to understand your goals, matching the right banking and wealth services to help you complete your mission. Thanks to the Business News for promoting our program in the biweekly business newspaper serving Northeast Wisconsin. The paper is delivered biweekly and contains relevant and useful information about the business community in this area. We would also like to recognize the David L. and Rita E. Nelson Fund within the Community Foundation for the Fox Valley region for their generous donation in support of Biz Talk and Score Northeast Wisconsin. And so now we'll turn back to Brad. And Brad, could you let our listeners know how they can contact you and the bank and the credit union?
You betcha. We, in New Holstein, that is our home office. We are located on Main Street and, just outside of where the old Tecumseh building used to be. We're actually within sight of it. That's probably why we're at this spot. We also have an office in Chilton, which is on Highway 151, by the Quick Trip actually. And then we also have a spot in downtown Kiel, right in the middle of the downtown.
Okay. So now, Rick, I'll let you take over for the wrap up here.
All right. We ended last segment, Brad, with at the question of, are you having fun? And you answered that pretty emphatically that you were. Could you maybe talk to listeners about how you derive joy from what you do?
Yeah. Rick, what we do is we make people's dreams come true. When people come in, they want to get a small business loan. That's something they just didn't think of the day before. They've been thinking about that for a long time, or it's been a dream of theirs. Or if it's buying, a piece of land, or if it's buying that new F-150 that they hadn't thought of, but now they can afford it. And I also, make my own dream, come true this fall. I ended up buying my, great grandfather's old farm, and, I made my dream come true. Didn't realize how much it would affect my mother. When I told her, she cried. So that's what we're in the business here, is to making people's dreams come true. And whatever it is, never give up on them. Just be persistent and just work towards it. And when you talk to your financial institution, hopefully they won't say no to you. But if they don't say no, maybe they'll say not at this time. And if they do that, that means they want to do business with you, and maybe they'll give you some advice as to how to get there where you want to be. So if they can't make the loan at this time or help you with your dream right now, ask them, how can I get there? What do I have to do different to make my dream come true? And they'll give you some advice. They'll say, you need to work on this. Maybe your credit score is not high enough. How can I get that better? Maybe I need some more capital. What steps do I have to take to get there? They will help you with that if they really want to make sure that their community and their members are growing.
Can you give an example of maybe, obviously not a name, but of someone that you've given that counsel to and how they've come back and how they've listened and how that really impacted their lives?
Yeah, it's interesting when you do talk to somebody and I'm sorry, we really can't make this happen at this time. And, we had one last fall. Where a guy had been working at a business and he wanted to, buy into part of it. And we said, at this time, we can't do that. What you need to do is go through these steps. But in the meantime, this is what I would do. And what he did is he worked out a deal with the guy that was trying to sell the business, to get to be part ownership in it. So that way, this guy also brought a partner on board to help him with his business, and also somebody that he knows he can sell it to possibly 2 or 3 years down the line. So it made a succession plan for him. And I think, Terry, you mentioned that earlier. Sometimes the first thing you got to do when you buy a business is how am I going to get out of that business? How am I going to sell this? Or is it going to go on to my children? So you have to be prepared for that. And it doesn't hurt to plan earlier rather than later.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Brad, for being on the show today. We really appreciate it. And it's really always interesting talking to folks that are in your line of work and the important role that they serve in our communities. And so we thank you for that. And we also thank Premier Financial Credit Union for being so active in our community as well. And for listeners out there, we hope you've enjoyed listening to the show today. If you'd like to listen to it again, it will be available again on Wednesday through our podcast. And if you haven't had a chance and you haven't been out to the podcast yet, I really encourage you to go to your favorite podcatcher and look us up under Biz Talk with Score. All of our programming is out there. You have a great opportunity to go back in time and listen to some of our previous shows. And we just encourage you to do that. There's some great lessons, some great wisdom like Brad shared with us today. So thank you again for listening. And we can't be on the air without you as listeners, folks. So we really appreciate that. And Biz Talk with Score is brought to you by WHBY Radio. And we're just happy to be part of that as well. And we thank you for listening this morning and have a great week. Take care.
Thank you.